Imagine tasting the sweetest fruit, feeling the sun warm your skin, or experiencing that still moment of peace after a storm. Which of those gives you deeper satisfaction? Is it the rush of delight, or the quiet, lingering calm that stays even when nothing more happens? These moments, however fleeting or enduring, tap into something ancient and foundational in human life: pleasure. But what is pleasure, truly? Does chasing excitement lead to the best life, or is it serenity, the absence of disturbance, that aligns us more with our deepest good? Today, we journey into the mind of one of antiquity's most thoughtful philosophers, Epicurus, to explore how he defined pleasure as the highest good. We'll unpack two key types of pleasure in his ethics: kinetic pleasures and katastematic pleasures, and see how they interact, compete, and coexist. By the end, you might just rethink what it means to pursue happiness. Welcome to the Unfolding Journey YouTube channel, where we explore big ideas, ancient wisdom, and insights that help us live better today. If you're into philosophy, self-reflection, and discovering how old concepts still shape modern life, you're in the right place. For Epicurus, pleasure, hedon, is more than just momentary joy or superficial delight. In his thought, pleasure is the criterion of what is good. It is the standard by which we judge virtues, actions, and the path to a flourishing life. Eudaimonia. To Epicurus, all other goods, friendship, freedom, health, are valuable primarily because they lead to or are forms of pleasure. Conversely, pain and disturbance are evils to be avoided. But Epicurus is careful. He does not mean that one should constantly pursue frenzied excitement or indulgence. In his letters and the fragments collected by later Epicureans like Diogenes Laertius, he refines pleasure into distinct categories and emphasizes sustainability, moderation, and the avoidance of pain as essential. The good life is not one of endless highs, but one in which pain is minimized, tranquility maximized, and desires managed wisely. Let's begin with kinetic pleasures, from Greek kinesis, motion or change. These are pleasures that involve activity: eating, drinking, physical sensations, mental stimulation, emotional excitement. When you're hungry and then taste a good meal, when you feel the sudden thrill of music or the joy of achievement, those are kinetic pleasures. Characteristics of kinetic pleasures: transient. They come with change. Once the stimulus ends, so does the pleasure. Intense. Often sharp, acute, often tied to satisfying a desire. Conditional. They depend on external events, sensations, or activities. Without them, or if they are taken away, the pleasure ends. Often necessary, especially in early stages of life, or when fulfilling basic bodily needs. These pleasures help us survive and maintain health. Kinetic pleasures are not wrong in Epicurean ethics. Quite the opposite. Satisfying natural and necessary desires, hunger, thirst, rest, friendship, through pleasurable means is part of living well. But kinetic pleasures, by their nature, are temporary and can lead to pain if overindulged or if the desire becomes insatiable. In contrast, katastematic pleasures, from katastasis, which implies standing, settlement, or stability, are pleasures of being rather than doing, pleasures found in a state of equilibrium or tranquility. They are not excited by change, but characterized by stillness, peace, absence of disturbance. Examples include the pleasure of ataraxia, freedom from mental disturbance, calm, peace of mind. The pleasure of satisfying minimal desires, needed for sustenance, but not overreaching. The contentment that flows from security, from knowing one's basic needs are met and intellectual, social, and spiritual concerns are not under threat. The physical well-being that comes from health, lack of pain, absence of discomfort. These katastematic pleasures are central for Epicurus because they endure longer, are less vulnerable to external upheavals, and once attained, reduce the likelihood of suffering. They represent not just short-lived delight, but ongoing well-being. Epicurus does not pit kinetic and katastematic pleasures in a simple hierarchy in which all kinetic are bad and all katastematic are good. Rather, he shows how they relate, how kinetic pleasures often lead to katastematic ones, or how we may choose kinetic pleasures that are consistent with long-term tranquility. Here are some interrelations. Means to an end. Kinetic pleasures often serve as means toward katastematic ones. E.g., enjoying a good meal, kinetic, contributes to bodily health and comfort, katastematic. Limitation and moderation. Epicurus holds that excessive kinetic pleasure can lead to pain, gluttony, overindulgence, distraction, so one must moderate desires and be mindful about which pleasurable activities to pursue. Avoidance of pain. A katastematic state is prized precisely because it guards against disturbance. It includes not only physical absence of pain, but mental peace. For Epicurus, the highest pleasure is not in the ceaseless seeking of intense delight, but in achieving the stable and enduring peace of mind, ataraxia, and freedom from bodily pain, which he called aponia. Together these constitute the ultimate katastematic pleasure, a life calm, pleasant, free from turmoil. To understand why Epicurus thinks pleasure is highest, we must consider what blocks pleasure. Unfulfilled desires and fear, especially fear of death, gods, or suffering. Epicurus famously argued that much of human anxiety comes from false beliefs, that death is bad for us, or gods punish us, or that we need to keep chasing after extravagant goods. These fears create disquiet, prevent us from achieving a katastematic state. So pleasure in the Epicurean system has a therapeutic dimension. Philosophy itself is a medicine for the soul. It helps us dispel false beliefs, sort out which desires are natural and necessary, which are vain and unnecessary, and help us build a life where tranquility, pleasure, and absence of disturbance flourish. Kinetic pleasures satisfy desires. Katastematic pleasure is a kind of contentment that arises when desires are fulfilled or purified, and fears are removed. What does this mean for how we live? Choosing wisely. We might sometimes forgo a kinetic pleasure if it threatens our katastematic peace. Example, choosing rest over a late night out because the next day, fatigue would make us miserable. Limiting desires. Epicurus draws a distinction between natural and necessary desires. Food, shelter, friendship, natural but unnecessary desires, luxuries, and vain desires, power, fame. Focusing on the first category reduces suffering. Cultivating simplicity. Simple pleasures are less subject to loss or disappointment. They are more reliable. Friendship, conversation, knowledge, all can contribute to steady pleasure. Confronting fear. By understanding nature, science, the limits of our control, we minimize irrational fears. Fear of gods, fear of death. Knowing that death is merely the absence of sensation, knowing that the universe is governed by atoms and void, etc. These remove disturbances and allow katastematic well-being. Prioritizing mental peace, not just physical comfort, but psychological comfort. Meditation in modern terms, reflection, intellectual clarity, gratitude, things that support that inner equilibrium.
It's not all smooth sailing. Some critics argue that Epicurus underestimates the value or necessity of higher goods like moral virtue, justice, or the beauty of striving. If one focuses only on tranquility, do we risk complacency? Others question whether pure katastematic pleasure is fully possible. Can human life really avoid all disturbance? Also, the balance between kinetic and katastematic can be delicate. If one always avoids risk or excitement, one might lose out on meaningful growth. Epicurean ethics responds, virtue is still important, not for its own sake, but because virtues, prudence, justice, temperance, contribute to peace and avoid pain. And yes, disturbances are inevitable, but much of our disturbance comes from foolish beliefs or misguided desires, which we can temper. In our modern world, we chase excitement, fast cars, social media likes, constant stimulation, often at the expense of rest, peace of mind, meaning. Many people suffer from burnout, anxiety, restlessness, and much of that comes from unending kinetic pleasure seeking. Epicurus gives us a framework to think. What do I really need? Which pleasures last? Which fears are unnecessary? Also, his ethics is practical. It's not abstract. It's about how to live day by day, which desires to satisfy, which to refuse, where to find peace and how to cultivate it. Pleasure, in Epicurean ethics, is not a shallow hedonism. It is the criterion of the good, yes, but refined. Kinetic pleasures give us bursts of joy. Katastematic pleasures grant us enduring peace. Between them is the art of living rightly, choosing natural and necessary desires, avoiding pain, calming fears. The highest good is not the constant rush, but the tranquil will, the serene mind, and the steady body that together ground a flourishing human life. If you found this exploration interesting and want to dive more deeply into philosophy, ancient wisdom, or ways to live more peacefully, then please subscribe to The Unfolding Journey. Hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, share with someone who might benefit, and let me know in the comments, which pleasure, kinetic or katastematic, do you find harder to cultivate and why? Thanks for watching, and until next time, may your journey unfold in wisdom and calm.